introduce Dr. Shi, thank Lord that him and here.
請大家低頭默禱。
Let's have a silent prayer.
Amen。
Amen.
哈利路亞！奉主耶穌基督聖名，我哋開始呢一節嘅問答。
In the name of the Lord Jesus, we begin our Q&A.
先嚟唱一首讚美詩305首。
First, let's sing hymn 305. Please be seated.
呢一首讚美詩係我最近比較常唱嘅一首讚美詩。
This is a hymn that more recently I've sung quite often.
因為係主要係嚟到係做個彼此嘅提醒，喺呢個侍奉嘅路途上咧，我哋有冇持守我哋起初嗰種嘅心態？
And it is a reminder for us that while we are serving God, have we maintained the initial fervor that we had?
喺侍奉嘅路程當中，我哋有冇偏差，或者係有冇係變成更加冷淡？
Or perhaps in our service to God, whether we have changed or become lazy.
所以我哋要常常嚟到思考神嘅話。
So therefore, we need to meditate on the words of God.
調整我哋嘅心態。
And to correct our mindset.
至到嚟係改進我哋嘅生活。
and to correct our lives,
讓我哋侍奉同生活都能夠合乎神嘅旨意。
so that our life and our service will be according to the will of God.
今日呢堂係問答啦。
So this session now is Q&A.
咁有好多嘅問題。
There are many questions.
咁當然呢啲問題係主要我希望啦，你希望係明白嘅道理，跟住咧能夠係照住嚟進行。
And of course, to answer the questions, first we need to know the words of God, to follow the words of God, to do according to it.
唔係只係寫上嚟考下傳道啦。
Not to just to write it down to test the preacher.
或者係發現有啲咩好似新嘅知識
Or perhaps because of any new knowledge.
覺得好似自己係與別人唔一樣啦。
So that to look at yourself as being different than others.
所以我哋未開始我哋問與答之前
So before our Q&A,
我哋就嚟係做一個禱告。
we'll kneel down to pray.
喺禱告裏邊，我哋求神嚟到係讓我哋明白神嘅道理。
And we pray that we can understand the words of God.
讓我哋亦都能夠係有力量嚟遵守神嘅道理。
And to have the strength to follow His words.
喺我哋生活上，依家我哋侍奉上，都要能夠榮耀我哋嘅神，得到主嘅喜悅。
And in our servitude and in our lives, we can glorify the name of God.
奉主耶穌基督聖名，同心禱告。
Let's kneel down to pray.
奉主耶穌基督聖名禱告。阿們。奉主耶穌基督聖名，我哋開始我哋問與答嘅呢個環節啦。
In the name of the Lord Jesus, we begin our Q&A.
就好似我哋剛才所講嘅問題，一共有11題。
So altogether, as we said, questions there are 11.
但有啲問題裏邊咧，一題裏邊咧，有可能有5個問題嘅。
But some of the questions within the question, there's about 5 questions.
所以我就盡量先係分享一啲比較簡單啲先啦。
So we'll begin from the easier questions.
跟住咧，類似嘅我就擺埋一齊嚟到去分享。
And any that are similar, I will explain them together.
另外嘅，咁喺時間表上咧，你見到啦，你嗰位傳道咧，應該咧係同我一齊係做呢個問答嘅。
So you can see on the timetable, Preacher Raymond was to hold the Q&A together with me.
咁樣我哋係非常之好嘅同工啦。
But because we are very good colleagues,
因為我哋最近嗰個月咧，先喺非洲一齊係翻嚟。
And we have just come back from Africa together.
因為成個月喺埋一齊。
Since we were together for 3 months.
咁嚟到姊妹靈修會又係你兩個。
And because of National Sisters Fellowship, we are together again.
又一齊同工，一齊嚟到係回答問題。
Not only to work together, but also to do the Q&A together.
所以我哋就決定咧就唔好啦
So we've decided not to do that.
咁我哋就有個責任就交咗俾我啦。唔好意思。
So the responsibility has been given to me.
當然，如果係你個位傳道有一啲所謂嘅補充嘅話，佢 佢會仲佢可能咧嚟係補充一啲嘅問題。
But if there are any things that need to be added to, I'm sure Preacher Raymond will step in.
OK， 咁我哋就先睇係第一個問題。
So we look at the first question.
第一個問題就係 OK， 呢個係同安息日嘅教義有啲關係啦。
So the first question has to do with the teachings about the Sabbath.
我哋知道聖經裏邊講到安息日嘅時候啦，就話一日嘅時候啦，佢係從晚上到晚上嚟到係計算嘅。
So we know that in the Bible, when it talks about a day, it's talking from evening to day, to the daytime.
我哋可以睇佢呢個係利未記嘅23章嘅32節。
We can look at Leviticus 23.
利未記嘅23章嘅32節。
Leviticus chapter 23, verse 32.
OK， 請你哋將嗰個經節打喺呢個。
Can we put the verse
Okay,
on
thank
the
you.
Bible, on the top there?
32節就咁樣講啦，嗬。
So verse 32.
你要遵守這日為聖安息日，便要刻苦己心。從這月初9日晚上到次日晚上要守為安息日。
It shall be to you a Sabbath of solemn rest, and you shall afflict your souls. On the 9th day of the month at evening, from evening to evening, you shall celebrate your Sabbath.
首先講清楚先，呢度所講嘅安息日咧，唔係第7日嘅安息日啦。
So firstly, the Sabbath that's recorded here is not talking about the 7th day,
係呢個節期嘅安息日。
but rather it's the festival of the Sabbaths.
但我要強調嘅，佢係點樣嚟到計算一日？
But rather, the emphasis here is about how to use calculate a day.
佢所謂嘅計算嘅方法就係晚上到次日嘅晚上就係一日啦。
So to calculate a day, it is from evening to evening.
通常我哋計時間，而家嚟計時間，嗬。
But nowadays, when we calculate a day,
我哋從點樣深夜12點就開始計嘛。
so we'll calculate from midnight.
跟住轉兩個圈就24個小時咯。
So if you go round twice in the clock, then that is one day.
但係猶太人計時間，佢係晚上開始計嘅。
But for Jews, when they calculate a day, it is from night time.
就話晚上嘅6點。
That is night time, 6 o'clock.
跟住咧，你轉兩個圈到次日嘅晚上6點就係一日啦。
And you will go round the clock twice, and then that will be one day.
問題就話當時嘅猶太人，佢哋仲未有呢個所謂嘅月曆，我哋而家計時間啦，嗬。
So when for the Jews, before looking at the time of day, but before the calendar was calculated,
佢哋點樣嚟到計晚上到晚上咧？
how did they work out night time to night time?
佢就係睇日落到日落。
They would look at the sunset to sunset.
我哋可以睇佢《申命記》嘅16章。
Let's turn to Deuteronomy chapter 16.
《申命記》嘅16章，我哋睇佢呢個第6節。
Deuteronomy chapter 16, verse 6.
16節第6節 ，sorry。
Verse 6.
只當在耶和華你神你所選擇嘅地，要立為他名的居所。晚上日落的時候，乃是你出埃及的時候，逾節的祭。
But at the place where the Lord your God chooses to make his name abide, there you shall sacrifice the Passover at twilight, at the going down of the sun, at the time you came out of Egypt.
OK， 咁呢度特別強調呢個晚上嘅就係日落嘅時候，就係晚上啦。
So here it talks about nighttime being twilight.
如果你係晚上嘅話，其實你係一個非常之長嘅時間。
So when we talk about nighttime, it's a very long time.
或者 evening 啦，
Or evening.
但問題就話你點知幾時呢個所謂晚上係開始啦？
So how would you know when the evening begins?
就係日落嘅時候。
It is at the time of sunset.
所以佢哋當時所計所謂晚上到晚上就話日落到次日嘅日落就係一日。
So to calculate a full day, it is from sunset to the next sunset.
所以其實第一個問題佢要問嘅，
So the first question is asking,
如果我哋要守安息日，要日落到日落嘅話，
if we are to keep the Sabbath from sunset to sunset,
咁我哋知道，就算英國都係一樣啦。你發現每一個地方嘅日落嘅時間咧，都係唔一樣嘅。
well, we find that in all countries, including the UK, sunset is different from place to place.
或者係唔同嘅日期嘅佢日落時間都唔一樣。
And even the time of year, sunset is different.
如果我哋深下啦，澳路景，
So in the summer for Elgin,
你哋日落係幾多點咧？
what time is your sunset?
7點、8點、9點。
So 7, 8, 9.
Alright， 如果係咁樣嘅話，係咪話我哋9點到次日嘅9點呢？
So would you say then that it is 9 o'clock at night till the following 9 o'clock at night?
如果你好嚴謹嘅話，一定要日落到日落嘅話，
If you are very strict in looking at sunset to sunset,
你會變咗咧，每一個安息日嘅時間都唔一樣。
then every Sabbath will be a different time.
甚至奧路景嘅時間同倫敦嘅時間亦都唔一樣。
And even you can say that the time for Elgin will be different than London.
所以你發現呢個 SDA 就話安息日會啦，嗬。
So the SDA
Sabbath
Adventist
Church.
Adventist Church, they are very strict.
佢哋之前啊會計真係會計日落到日落嘅。
And they would look at sunset to sunset.
佢有一個 chart 會計算奧路景幾時日落，今日幾時日落。
And they would have a chart that shows you in Elgin what time is sunset.
或者愛丁堡幾點係日落。
Or even Edinburgh what time
所以你係
sunset is.
居住喺唔同嘅地方，你守安息日嘅時間咧係會唔一樣。
And different places you will hold the Sabbath at different times.
但係經過咗係比較長嘅一段時間之後，
But over time,
佢哋就係安息日會啦，佢哋有一個整體嘅一個會議啦。
they also, the Seventh-day Adventists, they also had a conference.
就話佢哋覺得咁樣守安息日好似好麻煩。
They felt that this was very cumbersome.
所以佢哋喺嗰次嘅會議裏邊佢就決定，我哋就唔好照日落到日落。
They decided that Sabbath will not be sunset to
我
sunset,
哋就照時間嚟到去計啦。
but rather to follow a time.
就我哋話晚上6點到次日晚上6點。
So they decided it would be 6 o'clock at night till the following 6 o'clock
咁
at
無
night.
論你喺邊度住都係一樣，
So no matter where you live, it will be the
或者
same.
你喺邊個國家裏邊住都係一樣。
And no matter which country, it will be the same.
咁呢個就係安息日會佢哋一個嘅共識啦。
And so this is what the agreement amongst the Sixth-day Adventist Church.
當然有啲所謂嘅教派，佢哋會比較嚴謹，佢哋唔會遵照佢哋嘅所謂嘅呢個安息日會所定出嚟嘅規矩去做。
And so, of course, some other churches may be more strict and they do not follow this agreement.
但問題就話，而家我哋講真耶穌教會，
But of course, we're talking about True Jesus Church.
咁我哋係要日落到日落啊，定係用時間嚟去計6點至6點？
So do we follow the 6 to 6 or is it sunset to sunset?
據我所知啦，嗬。
So from what I understand,
猶太人佢哋之前守安息日真係日落到日落，
for the Jews, they would hold from sunset to sunset.
但係到咗而家呢個時候咧，
But for now,
佢哋都會係照係晚上到晚上就6點至6點啦。
they will hold from 6 in the evening till the following 6 in the evening.
有啲人會係5點到5點，
Some people will have it from 5 to 5,
有啲人會係7點到7點，
and some people are 7 to 7.
但係佢哋會定一個時間，
But they have a set time.
佢唔會照日落嚟到去計算，而係用時間嚟到去計算。
They do not follow sunset to sunset, but rather a set time.
第一個問題就話係咪我哋6點就6點就可以呢？定係我哋要好嚴謹嘅，一定要日落到日落？
So the question is really asking, do we follow 6 to 6 or are we following sunset to sunset?
係咪就話係咪6點至6點係可以接受嘅一件事？
Is it acceptable for it to be 6 to 6?
定係真係需要好嚴謹嘅，一定要日落到日落？
Or are we strictly following sunset to sunset?
照我喺教會裏邊長大嘅，到目前為止就應該冇照過日落到日落啦。
Since I've been young and all the time I've been a believer, I've never held sunset to sunset.
我哋嘅教導都係晚上6點到次日晚上6點。
So the teaching has always been 6 to 6.
就係24個小時就係安息日。
The 24 hours, that is the Sabbath.
OK， 我哋再睇一個經節咯。
Let's look at a verse.
我哋睇新約耶穌時候守安息日。
Let's look at what Jesus did in the New Testament.
我哋睇馬可福音。
Let's turn to Mark.
我哋睇第1章嘅32節。
Mark chapter 1 verse 32.
馬可福音嘅第1章嘅32節。
Mark chapter 1 verse 32.
呢度講到話耶穌到咗呢個係迦百農。
So here Jesus arrived at Capernaum.
喺安息日咧，佢就進咗會堂係教訓人啦。21節嗬。
And in verse 21, on the Sabbath, he went into the synagogue.
跟住32節咧就話 天晚日落嘅時候，有人帶着一群一切害病的和被鬼附的來到耶穌跟前。
In verse 32, at evening, when the sun had set, they brought to him all who were sick and those who were demon-possessed.
咁安息日嘅時候，耶穌就會堂嚟到係教訓人。
So on the Sabbath, Jesus went into the synagogue to teach.
跟住32節係講到咧日落嘅時候咯，就話安息日已經係過咗啦，因為日落嘛。
So at the evening, in verse 32, that means when the Sabbath had finished.
咁你發現咧有好多人咧將啲病人咧或者係犯鬼嘅帶嚟俾耶穌醫治。
And we see that many who were sick and those who were demon-possessed were taken before Jesus.
所以你發現當時嘅猶太人
So we can see from the Jews at the
佢哋
time,
係守得非常之嚴謹嘅，就話日落做日落。
they strictly followed sunset to sunset.
安息日佢哋唔能夠係治病嘅。
And on the Sabbath, they would not heal the sick.
當然呢個唔係神嘅吩咐啦，係佢哋自己加上去嘅一個規條。
Of course, this was not the teaching from God. It is a rule that they imposed on themselves.
但我要強調就話，當日落啦，安息日過咗啦，佢哋就將啲病人咧帶嚟俾耶穌係醫治。
But what we can see from this verse is that after the Sabbath, then the Jews brought the sick before Jesus.
呢個係當時佢哋仲冇所謂用時間計算嘅情況之下啦。
And so we know that at this point they were not following time.
咁到咗今日嚟講，佢哋亦都係同樣係用時間嚟到係計算。
But of course nowadays they follow a set time.
當然有啲嘅所謂嘅猶太教，有啲人比較我哋話係比較熱身又好，比較嚴謹又好，都會咧係用日落到日落嚟計算。
But we know that there are some Jews who are much more strict in their belief. They still follow the sunset to sunset.
所以對我哋嚟講喺真人蘇教會嚟講啦，我哋一貫嘅教導都係話晚上6點到次日晚上嘅6點。
But for us in TJC, the understanding amongst everyone is that it will be 6 to 6.
咁呢個就係原則咯，就話星期五晚上嘅6點到星期六晚上嘅6點就係呢個安息日。
So therefore the principle is Friday night 6 o'clock until Saturday 6 o'clock.
咁呢個嘅原則係咩咧？就話什麼工都不能做啦。
So the principle is that we do not do any work.
咁我哋就參加聚會嚟係敬拜神。
And that so we can come before God to come to the services.
或者係做一啲同信仰有關係嘅事情。
Or we do any works that is related to our faith.
譬如去探訪啦。
For example, visitation.
或者去嚟到係派傳單啦。
Or to hand out leaflets.
咁呢個就係我哋守安息日嘅原則。
And so this is the principle of the Sabbath.
OK， 我哋第二題。
The second question.
第二題有時人都會問嘅。
So the second question is a question that people will ask.
喺追思禮跟往去墓地落葬完了，點解每一位參加者要拿一紮沙或者花掉在棺木泥裏邊呢？有什麼意思？對信仰有什麼關係呢？
So the question is, after memorial service and burial at the cemetery, why do all participants take some sand or a flower and drop it into the grave? What is the meaning of this, and is it related to faith?
有冇聽過呢個問題？
Have you heard of this question?
我真係聽過話點解送完殯之後要食粒糖？
I've only heard of some people after the cemetery they will have a sweet.
呢件事情話信完殯之後就安葬完之後，大家都攞一紮泥啦或者係沙，跟住擺喺個棺木上。
So at the end of towards the end of the burial, the participants would take some sand or the
有啲人會擺花啦。
So they would take the sand or the flower and they would put it into the on top of the grave.
個問題係咁，呢個有咩意思咧？同信仰有冇關係咧？
So the question is this related to our faith?
好多時我哋會想，呢個係中國人嘅一種習慣。
Very often we might think, oh, this is something that Chinese people would do.
其實唔係啦。
But it's not.
你發現其實你西人嘅葬禮同樣佢哋會咁樣做。
But you find that it's also the case for Westerners.
其實西人佢哋會咁樣做，因為佢有呢個基督教嘅信仰。
And for many of the Westerners, when they do this, it's related to the religion.
就話基督教。
Christianity.
因為佢哋知道啦，人死咗之後咧，就塵土歸於塵土啦。
And that is the understanding that dust will go back to dust.
所以當佢呢個係 棺木已經係擺咗落去啦。
So once the coffin has been placed,
跟住佢哋攞個塵土，跟住咧係擺喺呢個棺木上面。
so they would take the sand to put it on top.
一方面係提醒我哋自己，人只不過係塵土而已啦。
It is also a reminder that we are only but dust.
有一日我哋都會係歸於呢個係塵土。
And one day we will return to dust.
但係最重要嘅，我哋信耶穌嘅人，
But most important for us who believe in Jesus,
雖然我哋肉身係歸於呢個係塵土啦，
even though physically we return to dust,
我哋嘅靈咧會歸於處靈俾我哋嘅神。
but our spirit, our soul, will return back to the one who gave it to us in the first place.
所以係佢有一個屬靈嘅意義喺度，一個彼此嘅提醒喺度。
So therefore it has a spiritual meaning.
所以當然如果你唔知嘅話，大家咁樣做我就咁樣做嘅話，
But of course, if you did not know the meaning and you do it because everybody else does it,
咁就其實就冇乜意思啦。
but in reality it doesn't mean much to you.
所以其實呢個即係攞一隻沙嚟到係送最後一程，呢個並唔係一啲所謂嘅我哋中國人嘅習俗啦。呢個係同中國人嘅習俗係冇關係嘅。
So therefore, putting the sand in the burial site has nothing to do with Chinese tradition.
Yeah. OK。OK。OK。嗰個經節啊就話《傳道書》3章19、20節嘛，傳道書嘅第3章19、20節。
Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 19.
佢呢度講到話，因為世人遭遇的，獸也遭遇，所遭遇的都是一樣。這個怎樣死，那個也怎樣死，氣息都是一樣。人不能強於獸，都是虛空。20節，都歸於一處，都是出於塵土，也歸於塵土。呢係3章19、20節。
So in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 verse 19 and 20.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah, please.
For what happens to the Son of Man and happens to animals? One thing befalls them, as one dies, so dies the other. Surely they all have one breath. Man has no advantage over animals, for all is vanity. All go to one place, all are from the dust, and all return to dust.
咁就係提醒我哋人，我哋嘅肉體就係塵土所做嘅。
So that reminds us that our physical body is made of dust.
我哋同啲動物冇乜唔一樣。
And in fact, we're no different than animals.
動物會死，我哋人同樣會死。
Animals die, so do we.
呢個動物會歸於塵土，我哋同樣會歸於塵土。
Animals return to dust, so do we.
但係我哋唔一樣嘅地方，因為我哋係信神，我哋係有靈嘅活人啦。
But the one thing that is different is that we have a spirit and belongs to God.
但當呢個係塵土，人嘅身體係歸於塵土之後，
So after the body has returned back to dust,
咁人嘅靈咧就歸於嗰個賜靈俾我哋嘅神。
then our spirit returns to the one that gave it to us.
所以喺呢個喪禮裏邊，當我哋係做最後呢個環節嘅時候，
So at the end of burial, when we have this final act,
係提醒我哋肉身其實係塵土啦。
it is a reminder for us that our body is but dust.
咁最重要嘅就係靈魂得救呢件事情。
But the most important thing is that our soul is saved.
因為如果我哋睇12章嘅第7節嘅話，
If we turn to chapter 12, verse 7,
呢度講到咧，塵土係歸於地，
it says that the dust will return to earth,
靈乃歸於賜靈嘅神。
and the spirit returned to God who gave it.
所以對嗰啲係遺族嘅家人嚟講，
So for the bereaved family,
呢個就好似我哋用英文所講嘅 is a closure，
as it is in English, it is a closure.
係一個佢已經係我哋話係入土為安啦，已經整個事情已經係結束啦。
So we can say that this is the end of the matter.
咁我哋應該因為佢信主嘅，佢靈魂能夠得救，我哋應該係從中得到安慰。
And so we can be comforted that their soul have been saved.
唔需要為古人嘅離開嚟到係特別嚟到係傷心難過。
So we do not need to be overly upset for our family members who leave us.
咁呢個就係灑呢個塵土嘅意思啦。
And so this is the meaning of putting the sand in the burial site.
好，我哋就繼續。
Okay, continuing on.
第三題，我哋跳過第3、第4題先，因為呢個都係講節日嘅事情。
Also looking at question 3 and 4.
第5講到結婚嘅事情。
Skipping 3 and 4, we'll go to question 5.
No， We skip question 5 as well。
Oh, we skip question 5.
因為講到係結婚，但係又講到過大禮啊、爬龍船啊、燒炮仗啊。
So it's talking about some of the traditional acts of weddings.
跟住第六題就係講到生日嘅事情，情人節、母親節、復活節。
Question 6 is talking about celebrations like birthdays, Valentine's Day, Easter.
OK， 咁呢啲我就等一陣一齊講。
So all of those we'll talk about later.
我先睇係第7題。
We'll look at question 7.
呢題比較嚴肅一啲啦，
So question 7 is a bit more serious.
就話講到傳異端者，他們仍然有來教會聚會，可以不和他們說話，但可以和他們打招呼點頭嗎？
So question 7. Those who preach heresies still come to church to attend services. I know we shouldn't talk to them, but can we say hello to them when we see them?
個問題好似話，究竟個界嗰條線應該擺喺邊度？
So question really is asking where is the boundary?
咁我哋就睇下耶穌點樣教導，或者使徒教會佢哋點樣教導。
So we look at the teachings from Jesus and the apostles.
首先我哋留意我哋講緊一個傳異端嘅人，
So firstly, we're talking about someone who preach heresies.
就話已經係斷定咗呢個人係傳異端嘅啦。
So we already know that this person preaches heresies.
咁我哋就睇下耶穌點樣講。
So let's look to see what Jesus says.
我哋睇呢個馬太福音。
Let's turn to Matthew.
馬太福音嘅第7章。
Matthew chapter 7.
我哋知道從第5章到第7章就係主耶穌山上寶訓嘅呢個山上寶訓啦，
So we know that from Matthew chapter 5 to chapter 7 is talking about the Sermon on the Mount.
咁樣第7章裏邊咧有一段咧係講到同得救有關係嘅事情。
And in chapter 7 it specifically talks about something related to our salvation.
譬如話要進窄門啦。
For example, to enter through the narrow gate.
跟住咧要小心嗰啲係傳異端嘅人啦。
And then also to be mindful of those who preach heresies.
我哋睇15節。
Verse 15.
15節呢個係耶穌所講嘅。
So verse 15 is what Jesus says.
你們要防備假先知，他們到你們這裏來，外面披着羊皮，裏面卻是殘暴的狼。
Beware of false prophets who come to you in sheep's clothing, but inwardly they are ravenous wolves.
OK， 咁耶穌佢意思就話你要防備嗰啲傳異端嘅人啊。
So Jesus says to beware of those who preach, who are false prophets.
因為佢哋表面上睇係一個綿羊
So outwardly they look like sheep,
但係其實裏邊咧佢係豺狼啦。
but in fact inside they are wolves.
佢係嚟到係要傷害我哋嘅。
They are here to harm,
或者係讓我哋離開呢個係真道嘅。
and also that you will depart from the truth.
所以佢話你要防備啦。
So therefore you need to beware.
咁問題就話防備係咩意思呢？
So what does it mean to beware?
咩叫防備？
What is beware?
你哋有冇睇過去一啲嘅鋪頭？有時你會見到一張告示
Sometimes in shops there is a reminder.
又會寫住話小心扒手。
Beware shoplifters.
Pickpocket.
Pickpockets.
最近你哋唔知有冇去倫敦啊？
I don't know if you have been to London recently.
倫敦唐人街裏邊有一間非常之出名賣餅嘅鋪頭，係咪？
There's a shop in London that's very famous for selling cakes.
菠蘿包啊、叉燒包啊嗰啲。咁你發呢間鋪頭咧，佢好生意嘅。
And this particular shop is very busy.
但係你係發現裏邊咧有好大嘅告示，寫住小心扒手。
So, but inside there is a warning to beware of pickpockets.
因為呢間鋪頭好生意所以咧好多小偷啦會企喺出邊咧嚟到咧係向呢啲所謂顧客咧嚟到係偷佢哋銀包。
But because the shop is so busy, there's a lot of robbers outside the shop waiting for you to come out to steal your money.
所以當你去到呢間鋪頭啦，睇到小心扒手。
So if you see the sign "Beware of shoplifting," beware of pickpockets, what should you do?
你會點樣做？
What would you do?
小心啲
You would be
係
careful.
結緊啲銀包。
You will hold on to your purse.
又或者甚至哎呀呢間鋪頭咁多扒手，我都係唔好去啦。
Or perhaps you think, I don't want to go there because there's so many
你
pickpockets.
會迴避嘛
You will be, you have preventive measure.
avoid
it.
所以耶穌講到呢個傳異端嘅人嘅時候，
So when Jesus talks about false prophets,
你要係防備佢哋啦。
you need to beware.
其實亦都可以用第二個字，中文係話小心又扒手，小心。
Or you need to be careful because of pickpockets.
所以教會裏邊嘅教導就係、
So the teaching in church is,
我哋為咗要保護信徒，免得佢哋被騙啊！
and because we want to protect the believers so that they are not deceived.
我哋唔會鼓勵啦，信徒咧同呢啲所謂嘅話，
Because if we are not careful,
就可能咧會被騙啦。
we will be deceived.
呢個就係教會嘅立場。
So this is the standpoint of church.
當然，
Of course,
如果我哋話呢啲人仲係嚟教會嘅，
they still come to church.
咁係一啲所謂無可避免之下嘅狀況。
In circumstances where you cannot avoid it.
當然話我哋唔會同佢哋接觸，亦都唔會同佢哋有咩所謂嘅聯繫。
Of course, we are saying we're not to be around them or to have engage with them.
但係有時你真係喺教會裏邊，你係避無所避咯。
But sometimes in church you cannot avoid it.
咁當然禮貌性嘅打招呼就應該冇問題。
So of course, in those situations, being polite is not a problem.
但係你要小心。
But you need to beware.
可能嘅話就又唔係話中國討埋去嘅，就話避免自己係俾人哋偷銀包就唔好去啦。
So in the same way, you would avoid, just in case your purse is stolen, you would avoid the situation.
咁呢個就係耶穌俾我哋嘅教導啊。
So this is a teaching from Jesus.
咁保羅、約翰佢哋同樣係咁樣教導。
And it is the same for teachings from Paul or from John.
佢哋每一次講嘅時候都係話講防備。
And when they talk about this, they would say beware.
防備呢個傳異端嘅人係要防備佢嘅假道理。
To beware of such people is to beware of their teachings.
就好似耶穌同門徒咁樣講。
Just as Jesus told the disciples.
你要防備呢個法利賽人同埋撒都該人嘅酵。
Beware of the leaven from the Pharisees and the scribes.
跟住耶穌佢哋起初佢哋唔明白啦。
At first, the disciples did not understand.
最後耶穌先同佢哋講。
And then Jesus explained.
咁佢哋先至明白過嚟。
And only then did they understand.
就話要防備法利賽人同埋撒都該人嘅錯誤嘅教導。
To avoid the Pharisees and the Sadducees' wrongdoings.
呢個係要你自己嚟到保守自己啦。
So this is to protect yourself.
唔好明知道前面有危險，我哋就踩落去啦。
Not to go somewhere where you know it's dangerous.
因為其實真係，如果我哋係被騙、被迷惑嘅話咧，我哋會賠上我哋嘅得救嘅。
Because if we are deceived, what we are given up is our salvation.
呢個係非常之嚴重嘅一件事。
So this is a very serious matter.
所以我希望信徒都能夠係明白呢個係道理。
So we hope that all believers understand this teaching.
呢個並唔係表示話教會冇愛心。
This does not mean that church does not have love.
或者喺教會裏邊好似六親不認嘅人一樣。
Or that we do not, we ignore friends and family.
甚至聖經裏邊咁樣講。
And in fact, the Bible tells us.
如果一個人愛父母過於愛我嘅話，
If someone loves their parents more than me.
咁你發現咧，佢就不配做耶穌基督嘅門徒啦。
Then they are not worthy to be the disciple of God.
你明知道佢係一個傳異端嘅人，
You know that this person spreads heresies.
但係因為你係佢嘅朋友，你同佢感情好好，
But because you are their friend and you have a good relationship with them,
就同佢咧係常常嚟到係接觸喺埋一齊。
then you are always with them and converse with them.
當你被迷惑而失去呢個得救嘅時候，
When you are deceived and you lose your salvation,
咁呢個你唔能夠教教會。
then you cannot blame church.
我哋自己需要係識得係審思明辨，
And we need to discern,
唔好俾魔鬼留地步。
not to give a foothold to Satan.
OK， 呢個就係呢一題啦嚇。
So that's the answer for this question.
OK， OK， 嘅呢題係應該類似一個小朋友問嘅問題。第10題。
Question 10.
第10題，唔該。
Question 10. Question 10. Question 10.
第10題。
Question 10.
我該如何向孩子解釋這條問題？如果耶穌是神，為什麼他向神禱告？那意味着他是在向自己禱告嗎？
Question 10. How do I explain the answer to this question to a child? If Jesus is God, why does he pray to God? Because that would mean he was praying to himself.
就係應該係一個媽媽佢嘅仔問佢嘅。
So this question is most likely from a mother whose child has asked this question.
佢個媽媽就同佢講你問下你嘅宗教教育老師啦。
And the mother's probably said, go and ask your Ori teacher.
但係佢嘅宗教教育老師話，不如你問下傳道啦。
The Ori teacher said, why don't you ask the preacher?
OK， 呢個同神觀有啲關係啦。
So this is to do with one Godhead.
我哋先睇下羅馬書嘅第1章。
Let's turn to Romans chapter 1.
羅馬書嘅第1章，我哋睇第3、第4節。
Romans chapter 1 verse 3 and 4.
咁呢度係保羅係講到我哋點樣嚟到係睇呢個耶穌啦。
So here it talks about Paul teaches us how to see Jesus.
第一佢係講到話啦，你可以按着肉體嚟去睇呢個耶穌啦，佢就係大衛後裔所生嘅。
So firstly he says that we can look at Jesus from the physical perspective, which is the son of David.
我就話從肉體嚟講咧，佢係大衛嘅後裔。
Because from physically he is the seed of David.
就係好似我哋一樣啦，有肉有血，有爸爸有媽媽。
So physically, like us, we'll have a body, we'll have parents.
我哋佢有肉體啦。
And then have flesh.
所以佢係生喺呢個世上嘅時候，佢需要好似正常人一樣，慢慢嚟到係長大。
And so, like a normal person, he will grow and will grow up.
到咗係30歲，佢之後佢先出嚟係做傳道嘅工作。
And after he was 30, he came out to preach.
呢個係同人係一樣。
And this is the same as man.
但係保羅亦都係講到，但係如果從靈嘅角度嚟去睇嘅話。
But then Paul also says from the Spirit.
佢就係神嘅兒子啦。
He is the Son of God.
所以保羅睇耶穌嘅時候，佢從兩個角度嚟睇，一從肉體嚟睇，另外從佢嘅靈嚟到去睇。
So from Paul's perspective, looking at Jesus, you can look at it from the physical perspective and the spiritual perspective.
從肉體嚟睇，佢就係人。
So from physically, he is a man.
從靈嚟睇，佢就係神本身啦。
But spiritually, he is God himself.
所以當耶穌喺世上嘅時候，佢係一個人。
When Jesus was on the earth, he was a man.
當佢向父禱告嘅時候咧，佢係向呢個父呢個靈禱告啦。
So when he was praying to God, he was praying to the Father in the Spirit.
所以喺呢個希伯來書嘅第5章嘅第7節嘅時候
，If we turn to Hebrews chapter 5 verse 7，
呢度係講到耶穌喺客西馬尼園嘅禱告。
It talks about when Jesus was praying in the Garden of Gethsemane.
咁佢特別話講到
And especially it says，
基督在肉體嘅時候，既大聲哀哭流淚禱告。
Who in the days of his flesh, when he had offered up prayers and supplication with vehement cries and tears，
佢向邊個禱告呢？
And who did he pray to？
懇求那能救他免死嘅主。
To him who was able to save him from death。
所以呢個肉體嘅耶穌，佢向呢個靈就呢個父嚟到係禱告啦。
So the physical Jesus prayed to the spiritual Father。
所以佢唔係自己同自己祈禱。
So he was not praying to himself。 係
肉體嘅耶穌向呢個靈呢個父咧嚟到係禱告。
So the physical Jesus was praying to the spiritual Father。
呢個係從肉體同以及靈嘅一個睇法啦。
So this is how we can see from the physical and the spirit。
佢唔係話呢個耶穌嘅靈向呢個父嘅靈嚟係禱告，唔係。
So it was not the spiritual Jesus praying to the spiritual Father。
而係佢肉體呢個人向呢個係神係嚟禱告。
But rather the physical person was praying to God, the spiritual God。
當然我哋喺靈裏邊其實佢係一體嘅。
So we know that in the spirit they are one。
但係肉體同靈佢係有分別嘅。
But the physical and the spiritual are different。
咁呢個我就回答。
So this is the answer。
咁樣你點樣同你嘅仔講就
So how you would explain that to your child is up to you.
It's not up to them. It's not up to them. Okay? ，OK。第11題。
Question 11.
呢個問題我真係遇過2次啫。
So this question I've only encountered twice.
我平時都係奉獻，我都冇想過呢個問題。
And when I offer, I just offer. I don't even think about this question.
當你奉獻1/10嘅時候，
When you offer a tithe,
係應該係扣稅之前啦，定係扣稅之後？
is it before or after tax?
明唔明個問題係乜嘢？
So do we understand the question?
譬如話你嘅人工係100磅，
So if your income is £100,
如果照扣稅之前嘅話，咁你就奉獻10磅啦，係咪？
so if it's before tax, you will offer £10.
但如果你扣稅之後咧，你可能剩翻90磅，即係。
So if it's after tax, so perhaps you only have £90 left.
咁10% 就係9磅咯，係咪？
Then that means it is only £9.
個問題就話究竟奉獻係扣稅之前啦，定係扣稅之後？10% 係點樣計啦？
So the question is the 10%. How do you calculate that?
咁大家都有奉獻1/10嘛？
And I'm sure everybody offers the tithes.
請問你哋點樣奉獻？
So how do you offer?
喺我哋由古時候，我哋話喺舊約嘅時候啦。
In the Old Testament,
第一次講到係奉獻1/10嘅時候，就係亞伯拉罕嘅時候。
the first time it talks about tithes is the time of Abraham.
當佢從嗰啲係敵人手上將啲財物係攞翻嚟之後，
It was after he had taken spoils from his enemies.
咁當時有2個王咧係出嚟迎接佢啦。
And at that time, there were 2 kings that came before him.
咁亞伯拉罕咧就亞伯蘭啦，將1/10所得翻嚟嘅1/10咧，就交咗俾呢個係麥基洗德。呢個創世記嘅14章。
So at that point, he took 1/10 of his spoils and gave it to Melchizedek.
就話佢所得嘅1/10，跟住交俾呢個麥基洗德。
So from all his spoils, he took 1/10 and gave it to Melchizedek.
所以冇計到話稅前稅後啦。
So there was no calculation of tax.
佢得到幾多，跟住從嗰度攞1/10俾呢個麥基洗德。
So however much he got, he took 1/10 of that and gave it to Melchizedek.
咁之後咧，跟住發現，我記得有一次雅各向神係許願啦。
But we know that Jacob one time made a promise.
佢要離開佢屋企去揾佢舅父嘅時候。
It was at the point when Jacob fled from his home and went to his uncle's home.
呢個係創世記嘅28章。
And which is in Genesis chapter 28.
20-21節咁樣講啦。
In verse 20 and 21.
就話神啊，如果你與我同在嘅話，
And he says, if God be with me,
又賜我食物，又有衣服穿，
and gave me bread and clothing,
使我平平安安返到我父家嘅話，
and so that I come back to my father's house in peace,
我就必以耶和華為我嘅神，我所立的柱的石頭也必作神的殿。凡你所賜給我的，我必將1/10獻給你。
And he then says, then the Lord shall be my God, and this stone which I have set as a pillar shall be God's house. And all that you give me, I will surely give 1/10 to you.
就話凡係神所賜俾我嘅，我就奉獻1/10。
So everything that God gives him, he will give 1/10 back
所以
to God.
係非常之係簡單係明了嘅。凡係神所賜俾我嘅，我就奉獻1/10。
So it is very clear. Whatever God has given you, then you will give 1/10 back.
譬如話佢有100隻羊就奉獻10隻咯。
So if he had 100 sheep, he will offer 10.
佢有10隻牛就奉獻1隻咯。
And if he had 10 cattle, he will offer 1.
冇計下究竟我用咗幾多飼料，或者我請咗幾多人去做啲乜嘢。
And he did not calculate how many workers that he had or how much extra resources that he needed.
總之從神所得嘅，我就奉獻1/10。
So whatever God gave him, he will give 1/10.
所以你發現喺舊約嘅時候，
So we can see from the Old Testament,
佢係比較簡單啦。
it is very simple.
如果係睇利未記嘅27章，
If we turn to Leviticus chapter 27,
30到32節。
verse 30 to 32.
咁嘅呢度佢有講到 地上所有的，無論是地上的種子，是樹上的果子，1/10是耶和華的。
And all the tithes of the land, whether of the seed of the land or of the fruit of the tree, is the Lord's.
是歸耶和華為聖的。
It is holy to the Lord.
咁31節呵。
Verse 31.
如果人要贖這1/10嘅什麼物，
If a man wants at all to redeem any of his tithes,
就要加上1/5啦。
he shall add 1/5 to it.
咁32節喺牛群羊群中，
So amongst all the cattle and the sheep,
一切從掌下邊經過嘅，
everything that pass under the rod,
凡係第10隻咧，都係歸俾神嘅。
then the 10th one is holy to the Lord.
就話無論你係種嘢又好，或者係啲果子蔬菜又好啦，你得到幾多，你將1/10送獻俾神。
So no matter whether it is vegetation or any of anything that you have, then 1/10 belongs to God.
咁嗰啲牛啊羊啊，同樣係咁樣計啦。
And it is the same for sheep and cattle.
有10隻就奉獻1隻，有100隻就奉獻10隻。
If you have 10, then you offer 1. If you have 100, you offer 10.
唔需要有咩係計較啦。
That you do not need to calculate.
OK， 咁當然我哋知道佢哋奉獻到咗舊約，其實佢哋奉獻因為要俾利未人。
And we know that in the Old Testament, when they offered, it was to give to the Levites.
因為利未人佢喺聖殿裏面工作，佢哋係冇自己嘅就係土產，或者有自己嘅所住嘅地方啦。
And because of the Levites, they did not have any inheritance of their own.
所以佢哋要將1/10咧係俾呢個係利未人。
So therefore, the 10th is to be given to the Levites.
讓佢哋係照顧佢哋家庭，讓佢哋可以專心喺聖殿嚟到服侍神。
So that they can have enough for their family, so that they can concentrate in serving God.
但係好有意思嘅嗬，民數記嘅18章嘅21節到28節有咁樣嘅一個記載。
But in Numbers chapter 18,
21節到28節
verse 21 to 28, it records,
呢啲利未人得到1/10之後呢，
once the Levites receive the tithes,
佢哋又要將呢個當中嘅1/10咧奉獻俾呢個聖殿。
and from that tithe, they will offer a tithe to give it to the temple.
就話佢得到1/10，佢要將當中嘅1/10啦獻俾呢個係神啦。
So therefore, when they receive the 10th, they would then give a 10th of the 10th to the temple.
就話唔單止教會嘅信徒要奉獻1/10，
So not only do the believers offer a tithe,
教會裏邊嘅全職工人要奉獻1/10。
then the workers in the church will also offer a tithe.
因為全職嘅工人佢哋薪水邊度嚟嘅咧？
Because when the full-time workers, where do their money come from?
就係信徒嘅奉獻嘛。
It comes from the offerings of the believers.
咁我得到你哋嘅奉獻之後，咁我要將1/10啦奉獻俾教會。
So having received the offerings for tithe, then I will also offer a tithe.
所以教會裏邊其實每一個人都需要咧係奉獻1/10。
So therefore, everyone in church needs to offer the 10th.
問題就係而家嚟到係我哋現在嘅時代啦。
But of course, in the modern day,
就需要抽呢樣抽嗰樣嗬。
there are all sorts of taxes.
有咩 NI
And you have NI.
問題就話究竟抽完所有嘅稅先至奉獻1/10啊，定係未抽之前就應該奉獻1/10啊？
So the question is, do we offer before all your contributions or after?
有冇諗過個問題？
Have you thought of this question?
冇諗過個問題。
If not thought,
我都冇諗過。
I haven't thought about it.
唔係你出糧啊，你咪奉獻咯，唔使話扣啲稅。冇可能㗎啦。
出糧比較容易計。
So if you receive a salary, it's easier. A wage, it would be easier to calculate.
不如我講我自己啦，
If I talk about myself,
教會出糧俾我，
and church gives me my salary,
但係佢將先嘅稅咧係扣除咗嘅。
but the taxes have already been deducted.
跟住咧將我就剩低嘅就轉入我嘅戶口啦。
So what remains then goes into my account.
咁我就從我所得到嘅呢個數目咧就奉獻1/10。
So I will take from what I receive, then from that I will calculate my 10th.
税第日都係你有份，政府都要俾翻你㗎啦。
係咪係咯？咪係咯？
政府都唔俾翻你㗎，你退休金咁多錢都係政府俾翻你㗎啦。政府抽你啲稅，第日佢都俾翻你㗎嘛。
No, she has a point.
No, she does.
She has
Do I need to translate that?
Yeah, you can.
So the sister said that in actual fact you gain it back because thereafter you'll get your pension and various things.
係咪啊？但係如果係做生意嘅呢？
But if you own your own business
例如話有附加稅 VAT，
or VAT,
哦，呢個 VAT 唔係屬於我嘅，
the VAT does not belong to you.
亦都唔係，所以我唔應該呢個 VAT 唔應該需要攞出1/10嚟奉獻啩？
So therefore you should not need to offer a tithe from that.
唔係咯？所以如果你做生意嘅，就應該從你所賺嘅錢啦嚟到係奉獻。Yeah.
Net profit.
Yeah, net profit. Yeah.
So therefore for those people who own their own businesses, it should be calculated from your net profit.
如果唔係嘅話，可能有咁樣嘅問題出現啦。
Because otherwise a problem might arise.
就話我今日賺到呢個星期賺到1000磅。
I have
日息1000磅，日息。
So my gross income this week was £1,000.
咁我就從呢1000磅裏邊奉獻1/10，就奉獻100磅啦，剩翻就900磅。
So from that, then if you work out a tithe from that, then it is £100. So you only have £900.
咁剩翻嘅900磅咧，可能咧唔夠係支付我所有嘅支出。
But from that £900, it might not actually cover all your outgoings.
甚至咧唔能夠咧係俾 VAT。
Or perhaps you can't even pay your VAT.
所以呢個就變成一個問題啦。
So this becomes a problem.
我就根本我冇咁多，但係你佢係將把我所謂1/10嚟到係抽去啦。
But in reality, you never had that much in the first place, but so much have been already taken away.
咁變成我其實係冇賺到錢嘅。
So in the end, you do not earn any money.
唔單止冇賺到錢，甚至係蝕本添。
But you might even be in the red.
好難解決。
It's a very difficult problem.
好難解決，我就問下你個威傳道。
If it's too difficult, it's for Preacher Raymond.
I thought you have a supplement.
No, not this question.
聖經講到奉獻嘅時候啦，已經係甘心樂意啦。
But from the Bible's perspective, our offerings need to be willing.
就話你係好願意係攞出嚟嘅。
That is, you're willing to offer.
就唔好太過係斤斤計較。
So not to over-calculate.
當然我哋唔會話受住蝕本你都要奉獻啦。
So you would not keep offering even if you're in the red.
係冇錯。係咯，你將你所得嘅，總之你從神嗰得嘅，你就奉獻1/10。
So what you receive from God, you offer a tenth.
咁你就甘心樂意嘅，心安理得嘅就好啦。
So it is good that we offer willingly and with good conscience.
但係如果你奉獻嘅時候，心好痛。
But if you're offering and you feel quite difficult.
應該奉獻嗰陣時咧，唔好1年奉獻，一個月咁奉獻，冇咁心痛㗎。哇！一下攞咁多千磅出嚟，哇！好心痛。
So the sister says it would be better to offer monthly rather than annually because it would hurt much more.
其實我奉獻咧，我根本睇唔到啲錢嘅。
So in reality, when I offer, I don't even see the money.
有幾多去咗教會嗰度，有幾多去咗話支出，我都睇唔到嘅。所以對我嚟講，咩痛都冇。
For me, when I offer or when for any outgoings, I don't see that money, so I don't feel any form of hurt.
但係每次都係咁樣奉獻，咁樣係支出。
So every time I offer and my outgoings go out.
但係個 account 仍然係仲有啲錢啊。
But in my account, there's still some money.
所以係應該唔會有咩損失啦。
So I've not lost out.
尤其是奉獻1/10，就話神係點樣講？你要將當納嘅1/10全然送入倉庫，使我家有糧。如此試試我是否為你們敞開天上嘅窗戶，傾福俾你哋，甚至無處可用，係咪？就係咁啦。馬拉基書3章10節。
翻唔到都翻。
呢個細路仔配聖句嗰時配到嘅。
識唔識讀？
唔得。OK， 就係咁樣啦嚇。
心境唔同我哋噶啦。
嚇？
你啲心境唔同，即係我自己講我自己嗰份啦。我有時都會即係咁諗啊。一下好似嗰啲姊妹賺好多錢人工啊，一年就俾稅，哇一俾哇咁多錢啊，即係好多錢㗎啦，一年啊計嘅，即係一個月咧俾咧就夠好啲，好似你用錢都係㗎啦，一下用咁多錢係咪咧？你唔同啊嘛，你嗰啲生活即係你係傳道，即係高級好啲㗎啦，思想就好啲㗎啦，我哋啲㗎啦，我哋就低級啲㗎啦，哇一下。
我嘅意思就話，你幾時出薪水就。你一個星期出一次薪水，你就奉獻一個星期奉獻一次；一個月出薪水就一個月奉獻一次。
So the sister is saying，
有啲人咧一年先奉獻一次嘅。
呢個我唔知。
即係咁講啊！一年咧一個月一個禮拜奉獻最好㗎，因為一下話奉10,000磅一年，哇！真係好多錢嘅一下，唔捨得㗎嘛。
So the sister is saying，
都係10% 啫。
So the sister is saying that for some people, if they offer once a year, it can seem a lot, and it is better to offer once a month or when you get your wage, and that way you don't feel the difficulty.
係咯。OK 啦嚇，總之個個都要奉獻1/10啦。傳道要奉獻，信徒都要奉獻。OK。
So everybody needs to offer their time.
冇咩高級低級嘅嗬。
Regardless of your position.
係。Yes。
有一樣嘢個稅務局
係退稅係。係。係，嗰啲稅咧係退翻俾教會嘅，係啊，所以係大家都要做呢樣嘢啦，係。You know, if you use giving, the revenue will reimburse you the amount, giving to the church.
So, I don't know, a good question.
佢就講俾我哋聽，其實係可以退稅嘅，奉獻係可以退稅嘅。
Also, the sister is just reminding us that if you pay by gift aid, that it's actually the VAT comes the tax comes back. Yeah.
好似1磅有幾多
So from a pound you get
20幾個
25p.
25p.
Yeah, 25p in a pound.
所以你話如果係未扣稅，你跟住你係奉獻1/10。
So before tax, and if you offer your tithes,
而家你係用 gift aid 嘅喎。
but if you use gift aid,
咁你所俾抽咗佢嘅稅咧，佢會俾翻教會。
So whatever has been taxed will be given back to church.
所以你係奉獻咗1/10，
So
而
you
係
have
俾咗教會啦。
So you have given your tithe, and that has been given to church.
OK， 就係咁啦嚇。
Oh, that's it.
OK， 我哋睇另外一個問題嚇。
So let's look at another question.
OK， 當中有兩個問題同生日有關係嘅。
So there were two questions related to birthday.
第6題有一個講到話可以慶祝生日嗎？
So question 6 it says, can we celebrate birthdays?
另外第9題
And question 9.
係講到話呢個生日點蠟燭嘅來源啊。
And specifically talking about lighting candles for birthdays.
佢應該喺網上查過啦。
And so this person must have already Googled it.
話原來點蠟燭嘅來源咧喺網上咧好多嘅傳說嘅。
So, looking at the history of lighting up a candle, there's quite a lot of tradition involved,
係同拜偶像有關係嘅。
and it's related to idol worshipping.
點蠟燭係可能攞嚟係辟邪啦。辟邪就係個 one of the evil。
Oh, so lighting candle is the word of evil.
又或者係點蠟燭嘅時候咧，就許願跟住咧，你吹熄個蠟燭嘅時候咧，嗰啲煙咧會升上去嘛，係咪？
So, and when you light a candle, it's to do with wish, and when you blow out the candle, the smoke rises.
咁就好似咧你嘅所謂嘅許嘅願咧，就升咗上去一樣啦。
And it symbolizes your wishes rising to the heavens.
咁當然呢啲都係同所謂偶像有關係、迷信有關係。
And of course, this is related to superstitions.
所以佢就個問題就係、
So the question is,
我哋可唔可以慶祝生日咧？
can we celebrate birthdays?
或者慶祝生日嘅時候，應唔應該拆蠟燭？
And also, if we celebrate birthdays, can we light the candle?
小朋友中意多啲係。
So children like to blow candles.
但係如果你明白呢個係一個異教嘅一啲嘅來源嘅話，
But if you know that this is from paganistic beliefs,
有冇人去諗？
has anybody thought of this matter?
所以對你嚟講，你而家知道啦，就應該唔好慶祝生日係咪？
But now you know you should not do it.
就應該唔好拆蠟燭啦。
So don't put a candle.
好耐之前啦，
A long time ago,
我喺聖靈月刊裏邊有好多篇嘅文章講到係過生日嘅事情。
there were some articles in the old Holy Spirit Monthly articles.
有啲人係贊成唔應該係過生日。
Lots of people agree they should not celebrate birthdays,
起碼耶穌都冇過，
have gone through a year peacefully.
係一個所以以一個感恩嘅態度去做呢一件事，
And so they look at it from a point of view of giving thanks.
而都唔係話乜嘢一個慶祝生日，同世人所講嘅慶祝係有啲唔一樣。
And it is different than what worldly people talk about in terms of celebrating.
咁當中有啲題裏邊，佢講到一樣嘢嘅，話基督徒唔應該許願。
But this question specifically talks about how Christians, we should not make a wish.
問題就話中文嘅許願同英文嘅 make a wish 有啲唔一樣。
But the Chinese and English meaning of this is different.
當然喺聖經許願嘅時候啦，就係 making a vow。
So in the Bible, when it talks about a similar terminology, is to make a vow.
咁聖經裏邊，中文聖經裏邊，人其實可唔可以許願？
So in the Chinese Bible, does it say, are we allowed to make a vow?
如果你許願係向真神許願嘅話，你可唔可以許願？
If you're making a vow to God, are you allowed to make a vow?
當然係可以嘛。
Of course you can.
哈拿有冇許願？
Did Hannah make a vow?
Yeah. 但呢個許願同埋 make a wish 係 different things altogether。
So,
sorry， 係完全唔一樣嘅嘢啊。
so making a vow and making a wish are two different things.
因為你許願就話神啊，而呢次俾我一個仔嘅話，我將佢咧獻上俾神，一世咧喺聖殿裏邊嚟侍奉你。呢個許願嘛。
So for Hannah, she said, if you will give me a son, then I will offer him so that he can serve you all the days of his life.
但如果我哋話生日蛋糕嘅許願就話其實係一個祈禱啦。
But when we have a candle and in the birthday, that sort of making a wish is a prayer.
咁你生日蛋糕許願嘅時候，你許咩願？
So when you make a wish, what do you wish for?
世界和平。
World peace,
身體健康。
good health,
快高長大係。
to grow old, grow big, tall.
咁呢啲其實呢啲嘅許願有冇問題？
So is there any problems with these wishes?
其實呢個係同禱告一樣嘛。
It is same as a prayer.
但係在乎你所禱告嘅對象係邊個？
But who is the object of your prayer?
如果你向真神係禱告嘅話，咁呢個冇問題啦。
If you're praying to God, then that is fine.
但如果你係好似去啲許願池嗰度等個 penny 落去咁許願嘅話，就唔一樣咯。
But it's different if you were to throw a penny into a wishing well.
Yeah. 因為呢啲係一個所謂同偶像有關係嘅嘢啦。
Because that is
就風
related.
俗習慣。
Because that is related to idol worshipping.
所以你話點唔點蠟燭？
So when you say should you light a candle
或者係可唔可以慶祝生日咧？
or to celebrate birthdays?
如果我哋話唔可以，
If you say no, you can't.
咁你會見到好多人會 be in trouble。
then a lot of people be in trouble.
我甚至喺教會裏邊，我哋見到有人會慶祝生日，
And we see many in church will celebrate their
尤
birthdays,
其是啲小朋友
especially children.
大家高高興興嘅宗教教育邊個生日就攞個蛋糕入嚟。
So, for example, in RE lessons, so and so is birthday, so you bring in a cake,
跟住咧插蠟燭，
and you put on a candle
許個願啦，
or make a wish,
跟住吹，
and then blow the candle out.
呢啲都係教會裏邊有嘅事情啦。
So this happens in church.
咁究竟係咪係同偶像有關係呢？
But is this related to idol worshipping?
佢哋咁樣嘅動作係咪好似拜偶像一樣呢？
Are they worshipping idols?
如果你嘅心唔係諗住拜偶像嘅，
不過始終都唔啱喺教會。教會係敬拜神嘅地方嘛。
So one sister says that if your heart is not worshipping idol, it's fine. But another sister says, but in the end, it is still wrong.
我哋幾點完啊？我覺得
應該4點。
4點啊？4點其實係飲茶嘅啫，係咪？
So we should finish at 4.
即係話食完飯冇幾耐，咁快又飲茶。
But refreshments at 4.
OK， 我就睇個經節，跟住將佢類似嘅問題做一個總括啦，嗬。
So we'll look at a verse and then we'll make a conclusion.
我哋睇呢個傳道使徒行傳。
Let's turn to Acts.
使徒行傳嘅15章。
Acts chapter 15.
呢度係講到外邦人信主之後嘅事情。
So in Acts chapter 15, it talks about believers who come to believe later on. Gentile believers, converts.
咁佢哋信咗耶穌之後，咁教會咧有啲規定咧，叫佢哋咧唔應該做嘅。
Here talks about some of the things that they must not do, and now that they have been baptized.
我哋先睇下20節，15章嘅20節。
Chapter 15, verse 20.
呢個喺有時聖餐禮或者洗腳禮嘅時候，我哋都會講到嘅經節啦。
And this is a verse that we often talk about in Holy Communion or in baptism.
就4樣嘢要禁戒嘅，係咪？
There are 4 things that you must not do, abstain from.
就話禁戒偶像嘅污穢。
Abstain from things polluted by idols.
跟住奸淫。
Sexual immorality.
勒死嘅牲畜同埋血。
Anything that's been strangled and from blood.
OK， 如果我哋睇呢啲人以前未信耶穌嘅時候。
So before these people were converted.
呢個食祭偶像嘅物咧，對佢哋嚟講係佢哋送養嘅一部分，好正常嘅一樣嘢。
It was very normal for them to eat things that have been offered to idols.
但係當你係信咗耶穌之後咧，你就唔能夠係食祭偶像嘅嘢啊。
But after you have believed in Jesus, then you cannot eat things that have been given to idols.
所以呢個俾我哋知道話，你信咗耶穌之後咧，你就唔能夠同呢啲偶像嘅嘢或者係活動有任何嘅關係。
So that reminds us that now that we believe in Jesus, we cannot have anything to do with idols.
任何偶像嘅嘢或者係活動，甚至係迷信嘅活動，我哋都唔應該咧嚟到係參與。
So any activities, any superstitions that's related to idols, we cannot have any part of
呢個係
it.
第一個原則啊！你信咗耶穌之後，你就唔能夠同呢啲偶像有任何嘅關聯啦。
So this is the first principle, that is, we cannot have anything to do with idols.
咁第二個事情係喺度奸淫嘅事情。
The second one is sexual immorality.
奸淫嘅事情，我哋話係呢啲不道德嘅事情啦。
So therefore, it is immoral things.
係神所憎惡嘅事情。
Because this is hated by God.
咁就話你信咗耶穌之後。
After you believe on Jesus,
你就唔能夠係做啲係唔道德嘅事情。
Then you must not have anything immoral.
就係違背十誡嘅事情。
Anything that is against the 10 Commandments.
跟住第3、第4樣。
The third and the fourth.
係講到係食嘢嘅。
Anything to eat.
呢個食嘢係講到我哋人本來就有所謂佢嘅生活一啲嘅習慣、一啲嘅傳統啦。
So this is related to traditions or habits.
咁呢啲同我哋嘅所謂文化有關係嘅。
And this is related to our culture.
咁但你信咗耶穌之後呢
But once you have believed in Jesus,
任何嘅文化傳統違背聖經嘅教導嘅話，我哋都唔能夠做。
anything to do with our culture or our tradition that is against our belief, we cannot keep those.
明唔明白我講乜嘢？
Is that
其實佢有一個界線嘅。
there is a boundary.
你未信耶穌之前，你會做呢啲嘢、呢啲嘢、呢啲嘢。
Before you believe in Jesus, you will be doing, you can do this and that.
但係你信咗耶穌之後，你就唔能夠繼續再做啦，
But once you have believed, then you cannot do these
因為你
things
已經係分別為聖啦。
because you are sanctified.
呢個之前所做嘅嘢，都會讓你係變成係污穢嘅一個人。
Because all those things will make you unclean.
咁我哋需要禁戒。
So we need to avoid these.
咁我哋就嚟睇下啦，嗬。
So let's have a look.
生日
Birthdays.
有冇違背我哋嘅信仰？有冇同偶像有關係？
Is it related to idols? Is it against our belief?
係咪一啲唔道德嘅行為？
Is it immoral?
係咪聖經裏邊有冇好清楚講到我哋唔可以食生日蛋糕？
Does the Bible say we cannot have birthday cake?
但呢個一個三個原則嘛。
So these are the principles.
但係我哋要留意就話，當你係即係話要做生日嘅時候，或者係要吹蠟燭嘅或許願嘅時候，
So, when we are talking about birthdays and we are talking about candles or making a wish,
我哋就唔好係被俗化
we cannot become
secular，
secular,
就好似變成世人一樣。
just as worldly people.
如果你要所謂許願，我哋唔好話用許願呢個字，好似好 negative 一樣。如果你話要做一個禱告嘅話，
But if we were to make a prayer,
你就好似感謝一樣嘛，或者謝飯一樣。
it is the same as giving thanks when we eat.
你要食蛋糕之前，我哋一齊嚟到係感謝哦。
So before we have the cake, we are giving thanks.
咁你就奉主耶穌聖名嚟係禱告。
And you pray in the name of the Lord Jesus.
我哋係感謝神讓我哋爸爸媽媽能夠平安度過一年。
We give thanks to God that our parents have gone through a year peacefully.
求主耶穌繼續帶領佢哋嘅生活。
And we ask God to continue to guide their lives.
喺晚年嘅時候能夠係平安嚟到敬虔嚟到係度日。
So that they may have peace and be fervent in their old age.
求主耶穌亦都係照顧佢哋嘅兒子、佢哋嘅孫子。
We also ask God to guide their children and their grandchildren.
讓佢哋成為一個敬虔嘅後裔。
So that they can be God-fearing the people.
咁呢個我覺得冇咩唔妥啦。
Then this is not a problem.
對細路仔都可以㗎，咪快高長大，學以眾報咯。
And it is the same for children. If you're to pray for children too.
係啊，
要感謝神，
係啊。
生命。
在乎你禱告嘅對象係邊個啦，同埋你禱告嘅內容係乜嘢，
So the most important is who are you praying to and the content of your prayer.
同埋你嘅所謂嘅生日，你做生日嘅時候就唔好搞到好似啲外邦人一樣啦，搞到好隆重，甚至係開埋啲放縱情慾嘅派對。
And so as long as our celebrations are not like worldly people where it becomes a very worldly party.
咁呢個就變成不道德嘅嘢。
Because this becomes immoral.
所以我哋要中文嚟講，拿捏得非常之準啦。我哋原則要揸得非常之正。
So really we need to have the right principles when we're having these.
就以呢三個為一個原則嚟到衡量我哋所做嘅事情。
So these three principles are how we should measure how we do things.
因為當然，而你講到聖誕節，可唔可以收聖誕卡，或者係可唔可以食聖誕大餐？
So if we're talking about
因為會有咁
Christmas,
樣問。
because it's in one of the questions, if we're talking about Christmas and receiving Christmas cards or having the meals,
咁收聖誕卡
on receiving Christmas cards,
我哋會遇到呢個困難，係因為我哋佢哋唔知道我哋其實我哋係唔守聖誕節嘅。
and the problem is that others do not know that we don't celebrate Christmas.
如果你要避免呢個麻煩嘅話，
If we want to avoid the problem,
你先同你嘅我哋親戚朋友
then first you need to inform your friends and family
就話你係信耶穌嘅。
that you believe in Jesus.
我哋唔相信聖誕節，我哋亦都唔守聖誕節。
We do not believe in Christmas and we do not observe Christmas.
佢哋就好自然咧，唔會俾聖誕卡。
Then automatically they won't give you any cards.
就好似我隔離屋一樣。
Just like my neighbor.
佢哋知道我哋係唔守聖誕節，佢哋亦都知道我哋係基督徒。
They know that we are Christian, but we do not celebrate Christmas.
所以佢哋唔會俾聖誕卡我哋，亦都唔會俾聖誕禮物我哋。
They would not give us Christmas cards or Christmas presents.
但係佢哋會俾新年卡、新年禮物。
But they will give me a New Year card and a New Year present.
所以為咗要避免呢啲嘅麻煩，你早同你嘅公司嘅同事或者你左鄰右里係講清楚，親戚朋友講清楚。
So to avoid such problems, then you need to tell your colleagues or your friends and family to avoid the problems.
咁你就唔會有呢啲嘅困擾啦。
And then you will not face the difficulties.
咁食聖誕大餐。
And Christmas meals.
我覺得呢個原因係因為可能我哋家裏邊有人仲係未信主嘅。
And often this is because our own family members are not all church members.
佢哋或者佢哋係信第二個教派嘅。
Or perhaps they believe in a different religion.
佢有咁樣一個習慣。
So they have this habit.
咁就變成一個係你係一家人裏邊，咁你就變成究竟佢哋食聖誕餐嘅時候，我 join 唔 join 佢哋呢？
So the question will be when they're having the Christmas meal, do I join them?
咁呢個係可以點樣講？係嫁娶外邦所帶翻嚟一啲嘅困擾啦。
And so we can say that some of the problems is because of intermarrying with non-believers.
當然已經係成為咗事實啦。但我點樣嚟面對呢個問題
？Of course, this is a reality. So how do we face it?
如果你話佢食聖誕大餐，其實佢哋係嚟到慶祝聖誕節啦。
So when they are having a Christmas meal, they are celebrating Christmas.
對佢哋嚟講，呢個冇乜所謂，大家開開心心走埋一齊食餐飽嘅。
And so for them, they will not see any problem because it is a gathering for everybody to come together to enjoy a meal together.
但對佢哋嚟講，俾人哋嘅感覺，或者對佢哋感覺，原來你都係接受呢個聖誕節呢件事情。
But for them, they will look to you and say, you also accept Christmas.
所以我哋應該係表面立場。
So therefore, we need to hold on to our principles.
如果係可以嘅話，我哋就唔需要嚟到參加呢啲所謂聖誕大餐啦。
So if we can, then we should not join the Christmas meals.
或者係用第二個方法嚟到去所謂係大家喺埋一齊嚟到慶祝新年啊，定係乜嘢？
Or to use other opportunities to gather together like New Year.
當然可以將呢個事情擺喺禱告裏邊。
Of course, we can put these matters into our prayers.
我相信有啲弟兄或者係姊妹，佢哋喺生活上，佢哋真係會面對呢啲嘅所謂嘅兩難之間嘅事。
And for some of our believers, they will face situations where they are caught in the middle.
咁同樣嘅就係我哋要表明自己嘅信仰嘅立場。
But on the other hand, we need to show our belief.
違背信仰嘅任何嘅活動，我哋都唔應該嚟到去參加。
Anything that is against our belief, we should avoid.
唔單止屋企係咁樣，學校亦都係咁樣。
Not only in our own households, our own family, we should be like this in school too.
當我哋細路仔要返學嘅時候，
When our children go to school,
就早講俾呢個係先生知道。
then you should inform the teachers
我嘅小朋友咧唔會參加聖誕節。
that my child will not partake in Christmas
或者係復活節
or Easter
甚至係萬聖節
or Halloween.
呢啲都係我哋唔會參加嘅嘢。
And these are things that we will not partake in.
早同佢哋講，
So to inform school early.
咁你就唔會遇到呢啲嘅困擾，呢啲嘅麻煩。
Then you will not face problems.
OK 中國新年
Chinese New Year.
中國新年你嘅話唔可以過中國新年嘅話呢？
So if we're talking about Chinese New Year, can we celebrate Chinese New Year?
咁樣香港嘅弟兄姊妹或者台灣弟兄姊妹或者中國大陸嘅弟兄姊妹應該第一個舉手反對。
So I'm sure those from Hong Kong or from China, they would be the first to oppose this.
當然，當我哋未信主之前，當我哋過中國新年嘅時候，我哋有好多嘅習俗、好多迷信嘅事情，我哋會去做。
And certainly before believing in God, then there will be many traditions that we must not hold on to.
但係你信咗耶穌之後呢？
But after you believe,
呢啲嘅習俗同迷信有關係嘅嘢，我哋一概唔可以係做。
then anything that's related to superstition, we must not do.
但你仍然係可以係過新年。
But you can have a new year.
但我哋過新年嘅方法係同以前係完全唔一樣嘅。
But we must not hold it as before.
就好似 台灣教會或香港教會或者中國大陸嘅教會，
So, for example, in churches, our churches in Taiwan, Hong Kong, or China,
佢哋新年嘅時候做咩呢？
what do they do in the new year?
去教會嚟到感恩聚會咯，
They would go to church to have a Thanksgiving
或者
service.
完咗之後大家去食餐飯，
Or perhaps they would have a meal afterwards,
或者係做一個團契，
or to have a fellowship.
係冇任何迷信嘅色彩喺裏邊嘅。
There is no superstition involved.
所以我哋唔能夠好籠統嘅話，可唔可以過中國新年？
So we cannot say very strictly, can you have Chinese New Year?
你需要係分別清楚，你信耶穌之前同信耶穌之後個新年咧仍然喺度，唔會因為你信咗耶穌之後咧個新年就消失咗嘅。
So we cannot say that just because you believe in God now, there is no such thing as a new year.
當你係信咗耶穌之後，你過新年就同以前就應該完全唔一樣。
But your new year needs to be completely different than what it was before you believed.
如果個敬虔嘅態度，一個感恩嘅心嚟到咧，係過呢啲嘅日子。
If we have a godly outlook to celebrate these days.
咁呢個就係當中嘅原則啦。
So this is the principle.
OK， 大家都好肚餓，佢哋喺度等。
Everyone's very hungry. We're all waiting.
裏邊有好多茶果嗰啲嘢可能。
And there's many cakes.
因為當中有一題，可唔可以做肉餅？可唔可以食月餅？
So one of the questions talking about, are we allowed to have Chinese traditional cakes?
你落到樓下，如果有嗰種，你食唔食？
If there are Jones downstairs, would you eat it?
派利是咧，
派利是咧係咯。
派利是。
What about the red packets?
派利是。當然，中國人派利是其實佢有一個傳統，就話佢叫做壓歲錢嘛。Something to OK， 一個細嘅紅包，紅色嘅紅包，擺一個好似錢啊、銅錢啊，擺落去，跟住咧擺喺個細路仔嘅枕頭下邊。
So traditionally, the Chinese
我知道，我
tradition,
講翻個故事啫。
Chinese tradition will have it that you have a red packet, you would put a coin inside and put it under the pillow.
咁就話為咗係目的係做咩咧？就係因為嗰隻獸咧，其實係一隻怪獸嚟嘅。嗰個歲啊，佢一隻怪獸嚟嘅。
So traditionally, it is to ward off the beast.
因為佢話咧過年嘅時候咧，佢就年30晚咧，佢就會出嚟噶啦。
So it is New Year's Eve, it will come out.
佢會食啲細路仔啊。
And
食啲細路仔係。
To eat children.
所以喺年30晚咧，大家都唔好出去啦。
So on New Year's Eve, no one should go out.
大家咧要喺屋企裏邊食飯。
Everybody should stay indoors to eat their meal.
所以make sure no one goes outside, so you will not be eaten by the beast.
大家唔好出去。
大家唔好出去，喺屋企留低喺屋企就唔會俾個野獸食咗啦。但有時你會驚個野獸可能會入嚟噶嘛。
But tradition has it that you'll be worried that the beast will come into your house.
咁樣你就攞個壓歲錢咧，係擺喺個枕頭下邊。
So therefore you will put that coin under the pillow.
咁當你野獸入嚟啦
，and when the beast comes into the
真
house,
係要食個細路仔嘅時候，
and if they were to eat the children,
睇見到個壓歲錢咧，佢就會驚嘅。
but they would be scared of the coin, so they would
佢
eat
就
the
會走
children,
啦。
and they would
其
run.
實嗰個壓歲錢咧係攞嚟辟邪嘅，我哋咁樣講。
So therefore is to ward off the monster, the beast.
咁呢個就係來源啦，
So that's the origins.
但當然跟住我哋唔會咁樣做，
Of course we don't do this now,
但係我哋會派利是。
but yet we still give out red packets.
派利是睇你點樣派。
So it is how you give out the red
如
packets.
果你係有一個迷信嘅觀念，利是是啦，
And so if you give out the red packets with the superstition behind it,
就係話你收咗利是你就好運嘛，
so traditionally it is when you receive the red packet, then you have good luck.
因為你派利是俾人哋嘅時候咧，人哋會同你講恭喜發財，恭喜發財。
Because they would then the person who's receiving the red packet say 恭喜發財.
咁你會好得到人哋嘅祝福嘛。
Because that is the blessing that you would give to someone.
所以你派多啲，咪得到多啲祝福咯。
And the more you give, the more blessings you get.
其實你派咧，即係派可能20個 P 嘅啫。
But it could be that you only give out 20p.
所以其實呢個係一個迷信一個動作啦。
So this is to do with superstition.
但如果你真係要俾錢你嘅小朋友過新年嘅話，
But if you were to give your young children money for the New Year,
咁就另外一回事啦。
that's a different thing.
咁我就唔需要一定要一個所謂紅色嘅利是封，
You don't need a red packet.
或甚至你唔一定要俾 cash 啦。
You don't even need to give cash.
今日嚟講，你bank transfer，
You can just bank transfer them.
咁就乜嘢都解決。
Then that will solve the matter.
總之唔好帶有啲所謂嘅迷信嘅色彩喺度。
So as long as it has no superstition involved.
即使係唔得派紅包啦，講
我冇咁樣講啊，我睇你派咩啫。
It is what you're giving.
得係一個紅色嘅紅包要俾。
你唔可以，你唔會用個紅包唔得㗎。
So we don't have to use a red packet.
你覺得唔派紅包就係唔得嘅話，咁你就一個迷信咯。
唔係，我嘅意思話，因為如果你講要俾嘅，如果係要俾錢，錢都唔使俾㗎啦，紅包唔俾咪錢都唔使俾啦。
唔係啊，
So the question is, if you don't give it in a red packet, does that mean you don't give money at all?
我意思話派利是派俾嗰啲係出去見到嗰啲人啊。
嗰啲好少派，自己親人。
no， 你睇香港嗰啲，你出街年初一年初二啊，出去見到樓下個空間有派。Yeah.
So traditionally in Hong Kong, you would give it to anybody that you see.
咁呢個係另外一回事。
So that is a different matter.
如果你係派俾屋企嘅人，
But if you were giving it to your family
我
members,
就建議你好似俾錢佢買嘢食咁樣，
but it should just be that you're giving money to your family members
或者
to
俾
spend.
錢你嘅啲老人家嚟到係飲茶咁樣，
Or you give it to the elderly in your family to go out.
唔一定要擺喺個利是封啦。
It does not need to be in a red packet.
而家嘅送封有好多好靚嘅，
There are some very nice envelopes,
而且係好 romantic 嘅，
or even romantic.
所以你唔好用埋嗰啲睇落去係真係紅當當嗰啲啦，
So we don't need the red packets,
一定要寫住恭喜發財嗰啲。
which has writing on it, 恭喜發財.
你橫掂都係俾，點解一定要用嗰啲嘢俾啫？
If you're giving money, why must you put it
除
in
非你有
that
咁樣嘅
envelope?
信念，呢個係一個好意頭，或者係一個迷信。
And you would only think that it had to be red because you needed good luck.
Yeah. 如果唔係嘅話，就唔需要。
If not, then you don't need that.
唔係紅色嗰啲得唔得啊？
得
So as long as it's not red, then it's okay.
得，
唔係紅色就得。
但唔好有嗰啲所謂迷信嘅字眼喺度。
But not to have superstitious writing on it.
就算係紅色係朵花好
唔
靚，
係啊，冇紅色嘅，
And not to use red.
買紅色嗰啲
唔係買嘅，因為佢真係貴。
OK，
都有得俾你㗎啦。
呢啲飲茶先講啦嚇，
Okay, you can talk about this at tea break.
因為好啲呢啲教會咧好難咧係一條條寫清楚，唔可以乜嘢，唔可以乜嘢，唔可以乜嘢。
Because of course, church cannot write down every single rule.
Yeah. 但係你需要有一個原則點，你係判斷呢件事情可唔可以做。
But we need to have the right principles so that you can make the right judgment.
OK？ Yeah. OK， 我哋低頭默禱。
Let's have a silent prayer.
Amen。